6 years, 8 months, and 21 days. As former Senator Leila de Lima said upon her release, that's exactly how much time she spent in detention. How did she emerge from all those years of unjust detention, not only not broken, but even stronger? She bore all the suffering, yes, but she also relied on the help and support of many close friends and allies and her dedicated staff. It really does take a village. Good evening. I am John Nery, and you are in the public square. We are joined tonight by the former Presidential Peace Advisor, Secretary Teresita Ging Deles, in the studio, and Dr. Sylvia Doc Guy Claudio, Professor Emeritus of UP, who are conveners of Every Woman, the support group who stood by Sen. Leila all throughout. And we also have Father Flavi Villanueva, SVD, one of Senator Leila's spiritual advisors, joining us from Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam. Good evening, Sec Ging, Doc Sylvia, Father Flavi. Thank you for joining us in the public square.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Mary.
My first question is for Sec Ging. No? As the persecution of then the newly elected Senator Leila de Lima gained momentum in late 2016 and early 2017, did you hear her talk about the prospects of being detained?
Yes. In fact, I think starting from her birthday in 2016, after her election,
in
when
August.
because she had immediately called for hearings, no,
That's
and
right.
it was very clear as chair of the Committee on Justice that this was going to be a major focus, and we know that I think the president from the start was putting threats already.
That's
Mga, yeah, ganon. So on her birthday in 2016, if I remember right, women already began to gather to be with her, to show the sisterhood was in place. And it was the first time we used the phrase women in purple and fuchsia, because we decided to go and visit her, and we would all wear the women's collar.
Okay.
Well, it was a celebration, and just telling her we were there. Sina Aida Santos, si Karina David was still there. It became more intense, of course, as things moved, and in February, Valentine's Day, there was very imminent threat already that they would get her. The President Duterte was already very clear that she was going to be a target. So on Valentine's Day, again, a group of women came over. We had heart bracelets and plastic handcuffs, and we chained ourselves to her and said, "We will be with you," and that was the promise of the women. Every woman, in fact, well, it would be, during the hearings in the House, when, so every woman would always identify, would always say, from the start, that every woman's birth was, in fact, tied to her, to the political persecution of Senator Leila. When they were threatening to show this sex video in the House, and lahat na ng kabastusan nangyayari doon. And it was a group of women, and it was Guy, in fact, who did that social media post that women decided we would use, and I think less than 50 women, Guy will have this better. When we decided at 12, there was this call that at 12 noon, post this, and it said, I want to testify in the House of Representatives. I am the woman in that sex video.
Yes, I remember.
Signed every woman, and I think within 24 hours, 1 million reposts, and having carried that every woman, it would become when we decided, hey, women have again to stand up. We have to defend our ground, and form the coalition Every Woman. We formed the coalition of women's organizations that were there, and we decided to call ourselves Every Woman.
I'll have a question later about Every Woman and how it came about. But Doc Guy, I'd like to ask you essentially the same question I asked Sec Ging. No? Did you have a chance to sit down with Senator De Lima before she was arrested and talk about what happens if you get arrested, you get detained?
Yes, John. I know this is Every Woman's start is for later, but it was because I asked a few friends, kasama na sila Sec Ging, if we could tweet that tweet because it was hitting so many of our advocacies. For one thing, violence against women on social media is horrible. Revenge videos, and in this case, it wasn't even a real revenge video because she wasn't the woman on the video.
Yeah.
But shaming women with video sex tapes is such a problem for so many women. And that's why we decided to tweet that ako yon, no? And I think it was like a solidarity through self-incrimination. And I'm sorry to go back on that, but it was because of that that the office of Senator De Lima called me.
I see.
And began to talk to me about, advocacies and how to help her. And then because I am a licensed psychologist and a medical doctor, after a while, her staff was saying, could you please serve also as psychological counsel? But at that time, before her arrest, really the pressure was horrible already. And it was also that time when she knew that she was going to be arrested, that it was inevitable. And some of the lawyers were even saying, discuss with her whether she should just flee and not because, you could be out of the country and not come back. That was an option that was given to her by many people who were advising her. And it was one of the reasons I was asked to counsel with her, no? And so I said, fine, if she wants. And she did agree. So we had one counseling session where, from start to finish, she was very consistent about the things she's been saying. That she was innocent, that she had nothing to hide, including the affair that she later admitted to. She was open to me about that. And it was very clear at that time that morally there was nothing wrong. They were both no longer with their partners. And so I keep trying to convince the courts that when certified psychologists like myself certify a person to be truthful, our years of expertise and training should be listened to. I mean, I don't want to say that that's a definitive thing, but I don't think our courts listen enough to what is our contribution to forensic psychology. No, so she's been truthful ever since, from that session that we started with. And yung themes niya that she's been out with, I cannot come out with anything that she did not allow me to come out with, right? But what I can say is all those things that came out in public about how she knew she was innocent, how she was going to face the music regardless of the consequences, because she would not flee from anything. She would face charges. She was innocent. She wasn't going to flee from a fight that she felt was about truth and justice, all those of our counseling where there was nothing to gain. She wasn't after my vote. She knew that nothing will come out of our session unless I am given permission to say so, or it comes out in the public already. So from day one, consistent siya doon eh.
And
When there was nothing to gain, when there was no propaganda points, when there was just this person being truthful in the confines of our counseling.
and Doc
Totoo
Guy,
yan, start to finish.
yeah, I will point out that if she did take flight, she wouldn't have been the first senator facing charges to have gone into hiding, but she did not go down that route.
Exactly.
Father Flavi is with us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Father Flavi, for
And
joining us.
I should point out that there were no charges yet, John. Huh? She wasn't asked to be doing anything illegal. She was asked to do something preemptive. Because she wasn't being sold fly from charges. There were no charges yet.
At the time.
And it was already on.
Fa- Father Flavi, thank you for joining us all the way from Vietnam. Can you hear me?
Yes, John, please.
Yeah, Father Flavi, from the very start, you and Father Robert Reyes and Father Albert Alejo, SJ, have ministered to her spiritual needs. No? How did this team of priests come together? How did you get started working with Sen Laila?
Well, Una, it's a pleasure to be part of this talk, this platform, especially with Ging and you and Rappler, of course, our distinguished team, Doc Lai. Honestly, hindi ko kilala si Senator Laila from ADAM. I know Robert only in the streets and Albert Alejo since 1996. But there was really nothing. And more so Senator Laila, no? So we perhaps bonded when the threats against me, against the two of Robert. Robert always has threats, so never mind him. But that's part of his personality. But me and Albert were receiving threats already because of my care for the extrajudicial victims, you know.
That's right.
And then I learned that Senator Laila was placed behind bars, and I told Robert, I don't know her, but if ever she would be needing my help, I will be there for her. So Robert brought me to the cell, and I admitted, and first, of course, I apologized to the senator, saying that I don't know you, you don't know me, but since we're both being targeted by this idiotic president, so you have my support, and I will be with you until the end of this.
So this was like a solidarity of the accused also. Father Flavi,
You could say that.
yeah, what did your ministry to her consist of? I know that you and the other priest offered prayers and so on, but can you tell us more about life behind the scenes?
Yeah, you mentioned a while ago the word broken, John. Let
She
me
was not
go
broken,
back.
yeah.
She was not broken, but I would like to also say that she could be, because being imprisoned leaves a certain mark that would not go away, you know. Perhaps the way she handled it, the way she disposed herself to this trauma was the one that made all the difference. But I would like to believe that she was very human to the point that she was wounded. She was wounded. And that is perhaps where me and her got to come to a certain leveling off to that understanding that we're both wounded. I am wounded in several ways, from my addiction, from my broken past, and from the threats. And she, no less than the same, was going through the same thing. Being wounded because of the ridicule, the shaming, and now behind bars, being silenced. Sabi ko, there's something behind, or there is something in this journey waiting to be unraveled. If you would allow yourself to recognize your woundedness, then I believe healing follows. Thus, that phrase of being a wounded healer was something that I introduced to her.
I like the way that you phrased it, Father Flavio. Wounded but not necessarily broken. Sec Ging and Doc Guy. What about you? So you were able to express solidarity with her even before she was arrested I was going to say the heights, but in the depths of the those terrible House hearings. You were with her. How else did you? What kind of help did she need, and how else did you provide help to her? Sec Ging first, and then Doc Guy.
I was in fact part of this, the needing to be there, sending her messages about how our family, how much we appreciated what she was doing. But because we were former cabinet colleagues,
That's right.
So it was also a coming together. I remember one dinner with the women in cabinet, just so that she could come and be in a private space where she could just be. That was before her arrest, it was that we would be there for her. The women also, and Soc Reyes was very much a part of this, of bringing her to the campuses. So before she was arrested, there was this. Where she would go, and it was there where she talked about finally understanding, because she said, as a woman in the position that she had been, she had never really personally felt the persecution or discrimination as a woman. She was strong. She was a lawyer. Her father had raised her to be that kind of woman. That strong woman that she was. Being able to get to places. So she said it was this threat now, as it was happening, that she in fact felt that connection with women who suffer as women, the discrimination that happens there. So it was both trying to provide a public platform for her to be able to speak to others who had not heard her before, who didn't really know her, except as a candidate who had run for the Senate. But also providing that, what we hope to be that that safe space, where she could just be herself, where we could, I know in that last dinner that was hosted by Susan Reyes, Social Secretary of President Aquino, be like, if we can sing here, because in the gatherings that we used to have when with President Aquino, because that was, as he would say, the only simple lang naman yung socializing at celebration na ginagawa ng cabinet niya, no? It would be dinner and there would be music. So Senator Leila was always one of the most, the fastest to call to sing, and in the dancing we were the dancers there. So it was that part of saying, hey, we're here. You go into prison. We have this other side still. That will keep alive. That will keep alive, and know you not as they have painted you. Not as they tried to paint you, but as we know you, as you have stood as Justice Secretary, now Senator, but also a friend. That there was this friendship, this connection, this bond that would be there for her always, and that's what we tried to maintain through the 7 years. Almost 7 years.
That's right.
Always sending her messages, being there for her special milestones. We started Leila de Lima lecture series.
That's right. Yeah.
That we said we would do every birthday, which we did until COVID hit. We did have one online one, and we hope to be able to welcome her to a public lecture. So it was. They're trying to be, but the thing was, when she was already in prison, how every time we visited, we knew we would visit her because we wanted to show her our care, our support. But always we were leaving her feeling that she had in fact comforted us.
Yes, that's right.
She had strengthened us because, well, this was this woman undergoing all of that. Hard to imagine even
Yeah.
how one could have lived through that kind of isolation.
Yeah. Without most of the amenities. Yeah.
Yeah, and no gadget, no anything. It was those times lang when she was allowed to have visitors, which became even stricter during COVID. That
That's right.
period when she was allowed no visitors except from her lawyers.
I did write something about her and visiting her, where many people go there to try to comfort her, and they come away
Yes, feeling
themselves feeling
yeah,
comforted.
comforted. She was always the one that was not. She was the one that was when at those most terrible times when we were complaining about what was happening especially in the political landscape,
Yeah.
with the political leadership, is that she was the one who was telling us that no, we can retain the good will stay, we will not give up, and that we knew that whatever happened, would be this woman who would not surrender to the dark night.
Yeah. Doc Guy, can you share your own insights into like behind the scenes experience of helping and being helped by Sen Laila?
John, I'll take a little time for human rights advice.
Sure.
Kasi my experience and why I thought maybe I was particularly suited in this role is I used to work during the Marcos dictatorship visiting detained and tortured persons.
That's right.
So the minute I heard she was being detained, I inserted myself sa lawyers niya and said, you better put me on the list of personnel that under human rights standards, you're allowed to, can see you, no? That I should have free access.
That's right.
Often it's the lawyers, they maybe the spiritual advisors,
That's right.
but they forget the mental health professional. So I do want to put that forward to anyone who might find this information useful. List as many people as you can, and don't forget your psychiatrist or psychologist, especially. No? So it's difficult in detention for even a psychologist, because usually we wait for our patients to say they want to see us. No, we wouldn't. It's in our ethics not to impose ourselves on our patient and say, you have a problem, see me. So for me, it was more like, because I'm used to it, I would go often early parts to check up. And I would say, I'm here, you didn't call for me, but I'm just checking you up, right? And then sometimes the lawyers would say, it's very stressful, you should go. So I would go. Pero towards the end, mas magaling yata sila Father Flavi eh. Kasi when I would go, wala lang, para akong bisita. Kumusta ka na? Okay lang. How are you doing? And I will say also one thing, no. Sometimes I doubt when people in prison say they found God, right? But Leila de Lima naman did not find God before she was put in prison. But yung claim niya of being purified, of being strengthened spiritually, I think there are two things about this woman. She has courage from the very start. And then her claims to spiritual growth and purity at the time of her incarceration was true. Kasi towards the end, nanghihintay akong tawagin niya ako, hindi naman niya ako masyadong tinatawag. Nung nag-stage crisis, pumayag siya that I would come to see her, na-COVID siya. So hindi ko na siya napuntahan. And then at that point, I'm like, I will wait for her. I will wait for her. I do not want to impose my counseling on her, no? But I realized during my visits that really what was strengthening her was her spirituality.
Yeah.
Really very strong. And her basic courage and principles. So, but I will say now, before I let Father Flavi come in, that because he has a lot, I think, to say about her spiritual strength rather than, pero very clear yan in my psychological assessment. Eh. But when I made a point to go see her when she was released, kasi I had only one message, doctor's orders, kausapin mo pa rin ako. Because my experience is reintegration is very difficult. And there were very special circumstances kasi maraming preso, may ibang presong kasama. Kahit paano, may kausap ka. Meron kang social relations on a daily basis. Siya pusa lang ang kasama niya. Eh. So, from a very narrowed life and set of social relations, she's going to go into a wide world where she's now a celebrity, far more than when she was a senator. And I really believe that would be one area that she will need help, no? She has some advantages. I mean, she's not hungry. She doesn't need a job, which is a problem for some of my patients who had to reintegrate. But this is a different set of problems. So with regards to that, again, I really would urge anyone coming out of prison, if they can afford it, they should seek some amount of counseling, not because they're ill or because they're dysfunctional, but it makes reintegration easier if you can talk about it. She has so many options open to her, so many decisions.
Right. Father Flavi, to the extent that you can share such details, can you talk about Senator Leila's spiritual life? Did you see the growth? What were the high and the low points, perhaps, that you can talk about?
Sec Ging and Doc Guy has already mentioned some very rich experiences of who Leila was inside. But perhaps I could also add one or two that when I first saw her, she invited me in, and inside her small, tiny cell that was so bare, zero electronics, no AC, only an electric fan, and
A cooler.
Doc Guy was right. Only the cats and plants to comfort her. And for me, sabi ko, dito ka titira? Father, I'm getting used to. Sabi ko, wag. Don't get used to. But then we were not allowed anymore to enter that particular confinement. And that was the beginning of my deep reflection of who this woman could become. And this brought me to the imagery of the first family. Hindi yung pamilya na sa palasyo, ha? But the first family, the Holy Family, who also had nothing except themselves, faithful friends, hindi man pusa pero may tupa, but they had everything. And I would like to use that word, integrated. Bago pa siya pumasok, meron na siyang persona. Bago pa siya pumasok, ay kilala niya na yung sarili niya. So when she went in and the persecution started, it was just, I would say that the faith prior to being fortified, it was something that she rediscovered anew. She rediscovered that the faith is far beyond the religious piety of going to the Mass. That faith also has that Paschal mystery that one has need to go through, the suffering, the dying, which only leads us to a new discovery of self and even meaning and purpose. So that's the first thing. She found a fortified, integrated person whose faith was being unraveled anew. And to be more specific, people have been asking me, have you ever seen her distraught? Sabi ko, yes, but only on 3 occasions. I don't know, perhaps our two distinguished ladies could add, but in my experience, tatlo lang po nung hindi siya pinayagan pumasyal, umuwi sa nanay, nung graduation ng kanyang anak, and what do you call this, bail that the hostage,
Taking.
the hostage, yung nitong foil bail, medyo sabi ko, Laila, practice lang yan, yung hindi na tuloy yung bail niya some months ago, practice lang yan, sabi ko. But these three events that this was the really thing that really shook her. But when especially the hostage, she told me after visiting her in 2-3 days, Father, I've cried after 2 days. And on my third day, I told myself, I'm not alone. I'm alive because there is a God who whispered to me, hindi pa tapos. There is still more to come. This will not be your end. And again, that created a new resolve, a new purpose. And that's how her faith has just been so fortified. And I would like to agree with the two observations that when we come out, there's this term that we say in religious parlance that the poor has evangelized me. And that is precisely what happens to me. Laila, every time I visit her when I go home, I have new stories to write about how her faith, witnessing, and they are two words placed in one, faith, witnessing, has evangelized me. And on a final note, now that she's out, it's very clear, just like what happened, that the security was discouraging her to go to Manawag. But she said, I made a promise to Our Lady. If that is not faith, that is coupled with resolve and integrity, and then I don't know what faith witnessing is about. So kumbaga, nabuo, at patuloy niyang binubuo yung kanyang pananampalataya sa piling ng mga kapwa niyang sugatan.
Thank you, Father Flavi. I have many more questions. I just want to make sure that I'm able to ask the next question before we run out of time. So I'd like to direct this question to all three of you. So I'll start with Ging, and then Doc Guy, and then Father Flavi. Senator Leila depended on her dedicated and very able staff, no, throughout the years of detention. And because of that, she was able to take part, limited, yes, but still take part in Senate proceedings. She was able to, I think, reach a new audience through her handwritten notes, which her staff distributed and so on. I'd like to ask you, maybe can you say something about the support she got from her staff, and maybe if you could point to a specific example? Because I know some of them, and really, I think they've really done very well. Seking?
Yeah. I think she very much supported. It was important that she continued to play the role of senator. I mean, yung sweldo and the support for her office during her term of office, sulit na sulit, no? She and to do that, it meant that staff was coming in every day.
That's right.
With the everything that she should read. Her beautiful handwriting, of course, is unbelievable. That because she was writing everything down, all of this, her observations, her ruminations in the dispatches, her greetings to people on their special occasions.
That's right.
that was all making sure that she wrote that, and that was brought out. Of course, all of the legal stuff. I mean, she was commenting on every bill that was that was coming, and they wouldn't allow her online
That's right. Not even
participation,
that, yeah.
no? So she could never vote. But we knew what she was thinking about all of the bills that were there, because they were coming out. So that was the staff that was making sure, being there, being able to bring in the stuff, being able to bring out what was there, and she would have meetings, and they made it difficult for her. Huh? There would be days when they did not allow group meetings. She would have to meet them one by one. There were days when, and especially during COVID, when only one person was allowed allowed to go in. So I think as the authorities, and I'm talking about the political authorities, not necessarily the custodial staff, would realize that this woman keeps on overcoming all of the obstacles that we put in front of her. She in fact shepherded the enactment of the Pantawid bill, when making that into law, I think with the help of Senator Trillanes for the actual, what needed to be done in the Senate. But all of that background work, the meeting, I know she asked me for a briefing on the Bangsamoro with her staff as the plebiscite was coming up. Of course, she knew that issue very well because she had worked on it as a Justice, as the Secretary of Justice in the cabinet. But where was it going to be up to now? And that was all. All of that couldn't have happened without her sharp mind, her dedication, and ability still to think all of these issues through. But the one that was crisscrossing between the outside world and was the staff, and you knew whom to call. You knew whom to call, not just for these things that you still wanted her to do. We need a message for a forum that we're holding in the province on her. Yeah. Can they send a video? And they would have to do it because they couldn't record her from inside anymore. It was putting things together from videos of her when she was still not in detention, to be able to put that together into something that was continued to be relevant to this day.
Her staff even organized an international conference on lawfare.
Lawfare, yes.
That was something.
Yes. Bringing that, helping, raising funds, I accompanied the staff to someone that could add additional money. So all of that they had to do on her behalf outside, and keeping that very seamless.
Thank you. Doc, I realize you have to leave soon after, but can I also direct that question to you? I mean, your dealings with the staff or your experience with her staff that helped create the environment for her to survive and endure the last almost 7 years.
I remember Father Flavit. I remember the first chief of staff, si Philip Sawali. He was a UP lawyer before he became chief of staff of Leila. And I was kidding him. I said, I guess this was never in your job description, and you probably had the most difficult position as chief of staff of all the other senators. And he was saying, oo nga, no? And I remember going with Philip through those difficult times na, he was not to begin with a movement person or an activist, for example. Yeah. And then I also will shortcut by going to the fact that when she was no longer senator, she had less resources, but people still stuck with her. No, we will not minimize that there were people with resources who did help as much as they could, but that was not what was, I think, the big issue, the big matter here. No, I always tell I always tell the people I work with, and my clinics is always for the dispossessed, the battered, the raped. No, that you don't, when you're down there, you don't realize that there you will also find a different world where the people who help you are just helping you because, well, I tell the women who have suffered from violence, like Senator Leila, there's a movement. There's a movement out there. And I could take hours, di ba? At the start, we would always have an empty chair in meetings
Yeah.
na nakadrop yung
The
scarf.
scarf.
So we would always do the empty chair rituals. We would make sure that we would get statements brought in and out by her staff for meetings that we would have. Um, there were always rallies, statements, demonstrations, and people just giving whatever little thing they could do, from the not so little thing that Sekging would help fundraise to even less things na people just making posters for rallies, being there in Muntinlupa. So this victory for me is parang restoring my faith in humanity. It was a good day for our country and justice. We have so much to fight for, but we're still here. And those people who were so cynical that they thought they could ruin this woman, and by signaling ruining her, ruin those of us who are still baduy. We still believe in justice. We still believe in gender equality. We still believe they didn't. They didn't. And it was because of Sen Laila, but it was also because of what Sen Laila inspired and how the movement still is there, and we came together to defend her and the bigger values that she began to represent for all of us. So it was the staff, kudos talaga. Well, you should name them all, John, at some point.
That's right.
It was also the movement that became her staff.
That's right. Baduy maybe, Doc Guy, but as they say, retro is in. So
I'm a senior, and Ding is a little bit more senior than me, so we've been baduy all our life.
Doc, I know that you have to leave, so I will say goodbye to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Father Flavi, what about you? Can you also talk about your experience with the staff and maybe some other aspects of her life behind the scenes that you were privy to?
Let me highlight around 2 or 3 again. Beginning with the staff, they were a reflection of the very person who they were following. They were not serving her, but they were following the very example that this person, this woman behind bars, broken but never down, wounded but never scarred, and nandun sila. And where do I attribute that? She was leading by example. And this very staff of hers was a mirror of she was, to the point that they would even visit our humble mission for the homeless and the EGK victims. They would be there. They would even be calling me from time to time asking, "Father, paano kami makakatulong?" Sabi ko, teka, kayo nga yung baka mawala ng trabaho. Kayo na nga yung inuusig at binubuntutan din. Tapos kayo ngayon yung magtatanong kung paano makakatulong. And in a very concrete manner, when one of those placed under my care needed medical attention, which was demanding a huge amount, believe it or not, it was her office that was first to throw in the support. And I didn't want to I wanted to save the money just to prove how valuable it was na yung taong nasa piitan ang siyang una nagbato ng suporta. Samantalang yung tao na bato ang apelido, patuloy pa ng babato. No, that's a side point. But it's just an example of how deep her empathy, which simply entices, influences, and should you say, just brings out the best of those around her. The last point would be when she did not come out as a senator, and which was also during the pandemic. Kanina no nagbabahagi si Ging siya si Guy, yung phrase, hindi ko po alam kung bakit yun ang tumino sa akin, but the phrase na walang iwanan, ay yung salitang tapat, T-A-P-A-T, tapat sila nung senador, pero ngayon ang pandemya at wala na ring sweldo, sabi ko, ito yung pag binaliktad mo yung salitang tapat, ganun din ang spelling.
Tapat pa rin.
At ganun din yung kanilang katapatan sa ating magdipi na senador. And one would ask why? Why is that so? Because she's a reflection of what faithfulness is, integrity, and the faith that she discovered is something that she cannot but share it to these people who have been caring for her also 24/7. So because of them, we have come to know the Leila that is alive, vibrant, and renewed, living in Camp Crame. It was the voices, it was the testimony of her staff that told her story constantly, apart from the narratives, the dispatches that she beautifully writes. It's the staffs who became her mouthpiece. Prince and Petong, to name the very few who have been a mirror of who Senator Leila was, and still is.
Thank you, Father
Thank
Flavi. Really, there's a lot to unpack here in this particular experience. It is 6 years, 8 months, and 21 days of spiritual growth, in the midst of political persecution. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. I would like to thank Secretary Guingdeles, Professor Emeritus Dr. Sylvia Guy Claudio, and of course, Father Flavi Villanueva of the Society of the Divine Word for sharing your experience in supporting Senator Leila de Lima throughout her detention. The strength of the public square depends in part on what we do outside it in the privacy of our room or cell. Thank you again. That's it for us tonight. As always, the next step for engaged citizens is to take a more active part in rebuilding our democracy. See you in the public square. This is John Nery. Thank you and good night.